Hello and welcome. In this episode, we come to join the Friends of King Alfred buses for the original King Alfred Running Day on the 5th of May 2025.
Well, good morning from Winchester Broadway. It's 20 to 8, something like that, and we're set fair for the running day today. The weather is fine, actually. It's not quite sunny, but it's certainly not dull, and it isn't going to rain. At least we don't think it is. So we're set to welcome the Mayor of Winchester. Around about 10 to 10 he should be turning up in order to inaugurate the first run of our Leyland Titan, HOR 811, at 10 o'clock. Now 811's had its fair share of birth difficulties, if you like to put it that way. Although it's appeared here this time last year, this is its first opportunity to provide public rides, and it will be operating on the number 1 service, appropriately, to Colin Common, and it will be one of something like 50 vehicles operating today. And we've got 15 King Alfred buses, and the balance made up of visitors of all shapes and hues, modern, well, not so modern. I mean, what feels like modern is 40 years old, I find, but also some quite old guests. And they'll be providing rides, free of course, across the whole Winchester network for the rest of the day. And there'll be something there for everybody, and we're looking forward to welcoming lots and lots of people. So I think the place to come is up here, Mr. Mayor.
It's a Leyland
Titan.
A Leyland Titan. Ah, right, okay.
It is a 56-seater standard double deck. There would have been loads of these in the fleet, and this is Richard Chisnell.
I was curious, what did they, before King Alfred buses, were there any other buses? How did people get about?
There weren't any. They walked. The story is, Mr. Mayor, that the City Council approached Mr. Chisnell, Richard's grandfather, in 1922 and said, "We are building a lovely new estate in Stanmore.
Right.
Will you provide a bus service?"
Yeah.
And he, after a bit of wondering, said, "Yes, I will." And as a consequence, he built up the only municipal bus service in Britain which was run by a family company,
Right.
completely separate from the city, but working
With them, yeah.
Yes, so it was a very early sort of privatisation, if you like to think of it. It was sort of before it ever started. So, and they went on as a family business until 1973, albeit 52 years ago now, but it's not that long ago, is it, when you're between us? Of course, Mary started her career.
Yes, driving King Alfred buses.
Yes. So
you started-
conducting them.
You were a conductor first.
Yes, yes, but I mean, so they were in their prime at the time, weren't they? Yes. No, look like you're enjoying yourself, folks.
All like this way for me?
The post-production of the HOR 811 video is going to begin. Please click on subscribe and YouTube will make sure you'll be the first one to see it.
I'm Colin Billington. I'm chairman of the Thames Valley and Great Western Omnibus Trust, and also, for my sins, deputy chairman of the National Association of Road Transport Museums. So that sets the scene, because it means that I'm busy doing not very much a lot of the time. This coach that we're on is a 1952 Bristol LS. It's in royal blue livery. It was used on long distance express coach services in the days before there was National Express and things like that. Royal blue was actually established in 1880 by the Elliot family, Thomas Elliot actually, who was the father of the name and an organisation, and they started with horse-drawn vehicles and first had mechanically driven vehicles in the just before the First World War in 1911-12 period. This is quite an interesting vehicle because it displays a very large change in the design and layout of single-deck vehicles because it has an underfloor engine, and the previous batch to this had a front engine, what's called a half cab, where the driver sits in his own cab next to the engine. But the LS was designed to be much more open, so that the driver is part of the whole scene inside the bus and can control they can be used for one-man operation as well. So you don't need a conductor, because the driver can also take fares if it's set up as a service bus, and would deal with ticketing on the express services as well. It was in service for about 12-13 years, and then it was sold to a company in the northwest of England for staff transport, and then it went into preservation, and it passed through 4 or 5 different preservation owners. We bought it in and I'm just trying to remember when we did. It was in the early 1990s. and it was in a derelict condition. We towed it back from a farm near Bristol, and it's been fully restored. The bodywork and the chassis and all the mechanical components. So it's in well, show condition now.
Hello, so I'm Robert Williams. I'm the owner of this DAF DB250 Optare Spectra. This was the first Optare Spectra built when the designs were transferred from MCW, and it was new to Reading buses in 1991, exhibited at the Bus and Coach Show as well. It's now 30-something years old, 34 years old, and came into my ownership about 10 years ago. It went from Reading Buses, went to another bus company in Sheffield doing school services, and I purchased from there and brought it back to fairly close to original conditions as obviously you can get it. So yeah, I'm delighted to be here at the Friends of King Alfred or Running Day to help support the very exciting event.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Terry and this is my 1985 Northern General Leyland Olympian. It was new in Tyne and Wear PTE colours when Northern ran some services as part of the Tyne and Wear integrated transport system, which included buses, metros and ferries. And they all ran under one common livery and one common ticketing system. Shortly after deregulation, the bus received the red and white colour scheme that it's in now, and that is the colour I decided to restore it in. The bus is restored in Go Ahead Northern colours, which is the livery that was chosen and the identity that was chosen for what became the Go Ahead Group. That was formed in 1986 in the North East, and this bus represents that period of that company's history. The livery with the ticket machine is roughly late 80s, early 90s period. The bus itself ran for Northern and its predecessors up until the early 2000s. It spent a short amount of time with the County Durham coach company doing schools. So the bus then passed to Johnson's in Mansfield. So when the bus was with Johnson's, it was retrimmed with Stagecoach moquette. So a lot of people get on this bus and assume it ran for Stagecoach. It never actually did. This was just some material that it got refurbished with, and it came to me with a full set of matching seats in very good condition, so I've decided to leave it as it is for now. When it was in service with Go Ahead Northern, it spent most of its life on a route between Sunderland and South Shields and some of the pit villages in the north part of County Durham. So it spent 15 years on that service before it was replaced with a low-floor Dennis Dart. The operators in the north east fitted these tombola boxes, as they became known, just to display different information on the front of the bus. So you've got the company name Go Ahead Northern, transfer bus and Metrolink transfer bus. The transfer was a ticket that you could use between the bus and the metro, or the bus and the ferry, or bus to bus connections as well. So it was a very versatile ticket. And then any journeys that were operated under contract to Tyne and Wear Passenger Transport Executive, they would display this on the front. So the tombola box was just there to display various information about the service the bus was operating. So Northern were unusual with their Olympians, which outwardly were to a standard NBC spec. The Olympians they bought in 1985 were unusual in that they had Cummins L10 engines and a Voith 4-speed gearbox. This made a huge difference to their performance compared to the Gardner engined equivalent with the semi-automatic gearbox. Northern bought almost 40 of this combination. In addition to this, South Wales bought a handful of L10 engined Olympians as well, and theirs had 3-speed Voith gearboxes. So I chose to include adverts with the restoration. There were a couple of contenders, but an obvious choice was this one you can see on the offside, which was part of the marketing campaign at the time of deregulation to advertise the newly formed company. And the picture you can see in the advert was actually recreated from a framed copy of that photo, which we had enlarged as part of the advert. So along with the exterior advert, this is Go Ahead Northern Country, we were also fortunate that we had originals of the interior adverts that matched the exterior advert.
So we had those reprinted, and we had just enough to add to the upper deck. And the bus remained in service with Johnson's until 2019, up to a week before I bought it for preservation. The bus itself went up to the northeast for its restoration. It attended a rally up there towards the end of the 2019 season, and it's been in West Sussex ever since. So it is a fairly standard Leyland cab. The obvious difference is because it's got a 4-speed Voith automatic gearbox, you've got the push buttons instead of the semi-automatic gear selector on the right hand side. These ticket machines were introduced in the late 80s by Go Ahead Northern. Their first electronic ticket machines. As you can see, they are fairly large. They're quite primitive by today's standards, but in the late 80s they were the future. Along with that, we've got a coin dispenser, which is quite an unusual thing these days, but back in the 80s, most buses had some similar arrangement. When these were first introduced, they actually went down to the halfpenny, and I believe they are still in use in the northeast today.
Five to 6 on Bank Holiday Monday, 5th of May, and I predicted that it would be dry. I wasn't quite right. It rained a bit today, but we survived and we kept operating, and we've had something like 50 vehicles running, various breakdowns and issues during the day, but the fact is that most people have had a wonderful time, and both supplying the service, providing the buses, and indeed going for their rides. So it's been very hard work today, and it always is in Winchester, because we're juggling between the stagecoach buses, the coaches that visit, they're most difficult things to deal with really, and our own services with all their foibles and difficulties. We've had a few breakdowns and issues, but they're all being resolved slowly now. We've still got, as I speak, a vehicle with a flat tyre that we're having to get a wheel for down in St Catherine's, but otherwise everything is put away and people are going home and starting to have a rest. Overall, it's been another good day. You cannot run a big event like this and expect everything to go smoothly. It just doesn't happen, and today has been an example of that. But nonetheless, you know, undaunted, we've got to the end of the day, The Broadway is clear, people have gone home, everyone's had a lovely time. Thank you very much, job done.
Hold tight, please.